Have you ever noticed that the loudest man in the room is rarely the strongest? He talks first. He interrupts. He needs everyone to notice him. Every achievement becomes a performance. Every opinion becomes a battle. Every silence feels unbearable. At first glance, confidence seems to radiate from him. But look closer. Real strength never begs to be seen. The tallest mountain does not announce its height. The deepest ocean does not compete with the rivers. The sun never asks for permission to rise. Nature has never needed validation. Only insecure people do. Now ask yourself an uncomfortable question. How much of your life has been spent trying to convince other people that you are enough? Think carefully. How many decisions were truly yours? How many clothes did you buy because they represented your identity? And how many because you hoped someone else would admire you? How many opinions have you hidden just to avoid rejection? How many dreams have you abandoned because they might make you look foolish? How many times have you smiled while your soul was exhausted? Most men never answer these questions honestly, because honesty demands courage, and courage begins where illusion ends. Carl Jung dedicated his life to understanding the hidden forces that shape human behavior. After decades of studying the human mind, he reached a conclusion that remains as unsettling today as it was a century ago. The greatest prison is the one we build to gain acceptance. From childhood, we are rewarded for becoming what others expect. Parents reward obedience. Teachers reward conformity. Society rewards predictability. Little by little, another version of ourselves begins to emerge, not the authentic one, the acceptable one. Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear so the world will approve of us. At first, the mask feels harmless. You wear it to fit in at school, then at work, then in relationships. Eventually, something strange happens. You forget that it is only a mask. You begin confusing performance with identity. You wake up every morning playing a character. The dependable employee, the funny friend, the fearless man, the successful entrepreneur, the perfect husband, the strong father. Every role demands another layer, another performance, another piece of yourself hidden beneath the surface. One day, you look into the mirror, and the face staring back feels unfamiliar. Not because your appearance has changed, because somewhere along the way, you disappeared. This is one of the greatest tragedies of modern life. Millions of men spend decades becoming successful versions of someone they never wanted to be. They collect promotions, they collect money, they collect admiration. Yet every victory feels strangely empty. Why? Because the soul cannot celebrate achievements built upon betrayal. It knows. It always knows. Your conscience never forgets the dreams you abandoned. It never forgets the words you refused to say. It never forgets the man you could have become. That quiet discomfort many people carry every day often has nothing to do with failure. It comes from living too far away from themselves. Jung believed every human being carries two lives, the life they show the world and the life waiting to be lived. The tragedy is not that most people fail. The tragedy is that many never even meet the person they were capable of becoming. Instead, they become experts at pleasing everyone except themselves. Social media has turned this into an epidemic. Never before has approval been measured so publicly. Likes, followers, views, comments, entire identities are now built around invisible numbers. People no longer ask, "Is this true?" They ask, "Will this perform well?" Truth becomes secondary. Authenticity becomes negotiable. Image becomes everything. Jung warned about this long before smartphones existed. He understood that whenever a society becomes obsessed with appearances, the individual slowly disappears. Look around. How many people truly speak what they believe? How many express opinions because they genuinely hold them? And how many simply repeat whatever keeps them accepted? How many careers are chosen out of passion? And how many out of fear? Fear of disappointing family. Fear of criticism. Fear of uncertainty. Fear of standing alone. Fear has become remarkably sophisticated. It rarely arrives screaming. It whispers. It sounds reasonable. It tells you to wait one more year, to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to avoid unnecessary risks, to remain comfortable. Comfort slowly becomes identity. Years pass. Dreams shrink. Potential fades. Not because life defeated you, because fear negotiated a better deal, one compromise at a time. This is why Jung insisted that self-awareness is never comfortable. It destroys comforting illusions. It forces a man to recognize how often he has lived according to someone else's script. Imagine spending your entire life acting in a play, only to realize you never wrote a single line. That realization hurts. But pain is often the doorway to freedom. Every meaningful transformation begins with disappointment. Disappointment with the person you have become, not to create shame, but to awaken responsibility. Responsibility changes everything. The moment you stop blaming your parents, your childhood, your circumstances, your past, your failures, your luck, your country, or anyone else, you recover something priceless. Choice. Every day offers another opportunity to become slightly more authentic. Not louder. Not more admired. More real. The strongest men are rarely the most impressive at first glance. They move differently. They speak less. They observe more. They no longer need every room to recognize their presence. Their confidence no longer depends on attention. It comes from alignment. Their actions match their values. Their words match their actions. Their private life matches their public image. Nothing consumes more energy than pretending. Nothing creates more peace than honesty. Not honesty with other people. Honesty with yourself. That is where transformation begins. Jung once wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that carefully. How many habits do you call personality, when they are actually unconscious programming? How many emotional reactions have become automatic? How many fears feel permanent, simply because they have never been questioned? Most people never stop long enough to ask. They remain busy. Busy working. Busy consuming. Busy distracting themselves. Because silence is dangerous. Silence forces you to meet yourself. Many people fear loneliness. What they truly fear is meeting the stranger living inside them. That stranger carries forgotten dreams, suppressed anger, unspoken truth, untapped courage, buried ambition, and enormous potential. The modern world encourages distraction because distraction prevents transformation. A distracted man rarely changes. He consumes, complains, repeats, sleeps, wakes, repeats again. Years disappear. Life ends, without ever discovering who he really was. Jung refused to accept such a life. He believed every man carries within himself someone infinitely greater than the person he currently is. But meeting that man requires sacrifice. Not the sacrifice of comfort alone, the sacrifice of illusion, the willingness to remove every mask, to question every belief, to confront every fear, to stop performing, to stop pretending, to stop asking permission to become yourself. That journey is terrifying, because authenticity has a price. Some people will misunderstand you. Others will reject you. Some relationships will end. Certain doors will close forever. Yet another kind of door quietly opens, the door that leads back to yourself. And once a man walks through that door, something remarkable begins to happen. He no longer needs the world's applause to believe in his own worth. He no longer measures himself against strangers. He no longer wastes his life chasing approval that can disappear overnight. He becomes dangerous, not because he seeks conflict, but because he can no longer be controlled by the opinions of people who never truly knew him. That kind of man cannot be manipulated with praise. He cannot be broken by criticism. He cannot be bought by status, because his identity no longer belongs to the crowd. It belongs to him. And that is where real freedom begins. A man who spends his entire life wearing masks eventually forgets what his real face looks like. That is the danger, not the mask itself. The danger begins when the mask becomes your identity. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries within himself another figure, a figure hidden beneath years of conditioning, beneath fear, beneath shame, beneath everything society taught him to suppress. He called it the shadow. Few ideas have been misunderstood as much as this. 1. Many people imagine the shadow as something evil, a dark force, a monster buried inside every human being. Jung never meant that. The shadow is everything you refuse to acknowledge about yourself. Your anger, your ambition, your envy, your courage, your selfishness, your creativity, your aggression, even your greatness. Anything you reject long enough eventually disappears from your conscious identity. But it never disappears from your life. It simply begins operating from the shadows. That is why people often sabotage themselves without understanding why. Why does a man destroy a relationship he desperately wanted? Why does someone abandon success the moment it becomes possible? Why does another repeat the same destructive patterns for 20 years? The answer is rarely found in intelligence. It is found in what remains unconscious. The mind always protects what it refuses to confront. Imagine a house where every unwanted object is locked inside the basement. First, the rooms upstairs remain clean. Everything looks organized. Visitors admire the appearance. But year after year, the basement keeps filling. Soon, the door begins to shake. Eventually, something breaks through. Human psychology works the same way. Every emotion you refuse to face gains strength in silence. Every fear you avoid quietly expands. Every wound ignored continues shaping your decisions. You may believe you buried your anger years ago, but perhaps it simply learned another language. Sarcasm, passive aggression, cold silence, bitterness. You may believe you eliminated your fear. Perhaps it simply disguised itself as perfectionism, or procrastination, or endless preparation. The unconscious is remarkably intelligent. It does not disappear because you ignore it. It adapts. That is why Jung insisted that the first battle of every meaningful life is not against the world. It is against self-deception. Most people would rather remain comfortable than become aware, because awareness demands responsibility. Once you see the truth, you can no longer pretend ignorance. That moment changes everything. Think about the strongest people you have ever met. Not the loudest, not the wealthiest, not the most famous, the strongest. Chances are they share one characteristic: calm. Not because life has been easy, but because they have already fought the hardest battles inside themselves. Outer chaos loses its power over the man who has created inner order. This is why criticism affects some people so deeply. It is not the criticism itself. It is because it touches a wound that was never healed. A confident man listens, reflects, improves if necessary, then continues walking. An insecure man hears the same words and feels his entire identity collapsing. The difference has nothing to do with confidence. It has everything to do with self-knowledge. The world cannot manipulate a man who already knows both his strengths and his weaknesses. Compliments cannot intoxicate him. Insults cannot destroy him. He no longer depends on either. That is real freedom. Jung often observed that whatever irritates us in others can become a doorway to understanding ourselves. Think about the people you cannot stand: the arrogant, the selfish, the manipulative, the dishonest. Now ask yourself another uncomfortable question. Why do they affect you so deeply? Sometimes they remind you of qualities you secretly fear within yourself. Other times, they display qualities you were taught never to express. Many men hate confident people, not because confidence is wrong, but because they abandoned their own confidence years ago. Some criticize ambition, only because they buried their own dreams. Others attack discipline, because every disciplined person silently reminds them of promises they never kept. Projection is one of the oldest tricks of the human mind. We throw our own unfinished battles onto other people. Then we spend years fighting reflections of ourselves. Jung wanted men to stop doing that. He wanted them to turn around, to face the source instead of the reflection. That requires courage. Real courage. Not the courage to fight another man, the courage to sit alone with yourself, to admit jealousy without becoming jealous, to admit fear without becoming fear, to admit weakness without allowing weakness to define you. There is extraordinary power in that kind of honesty, because what can be named can be transformed. What remains hidden controls you. Modern culture constantly encourages emotional suppression. Be positive. Stay strong. Move on. But healing has never come from pretending. A wound covered by expensive clothing still bleeds. Pain ignored still shapes behavior. Trauma buried still whispers into every important decision. Healing begins where denial ends. That is why Jung never encouraged people to destroy their shadow. He encouraged them to understand it, because every shadow carries something valuable. Your anger may become courage. Your fear may become wisdom. Your ambition may become purpose. Your aggression may become disciplined strength. The goal is not to eliminate darkness. The goal is to stop letting darkness drive your life unconsciously. Think about fire. Fire can burn a home to the ground. The same fire can forge steel, cook food, provide warmth, light the darkness. Fire itself is neither good nor evil. Everything depends on who controls it. Human nature follows the same principle. The strongest man is not the one without darkness. He is the one who has learned how to command it. That is why truly dangerous men appear remarkably peaceful. They have nothing left to prove. They know exactly what they are capable of, and precisely because they know. They do not waste energy trying to intimidate anyone. Only insecure men constantly advertise their strength. Real power rarely introduces itself. It simply enters the room and changes the atmosphere. Jung understood something that modern society continues to forget. Every human being is divided. One part seeks comfort, the other seeks growth. One wants certainty, the other craves meaning. One wants approval, the other wants freedom. Those two voices never disappear. The question is, which one will become your master? Every morning you cast another vote. Every difficult conversation, every promise kept, every temptation resisted, Every uncomfortable truth, accept it. Each decision strengthens one version of yourself. The disciplined man is not someone who never feels fear. He simply refuses to let fear make his decisions. The authentic man is not someone without flaws. He is someone who has stopped hiding from them. That is the beginning of psychological freedom. Not perfection. Integration. The day you stop running from yourself, you discover that the enemy you feared most has been waiting your entire life to become your greatest ally. The man who refuses to face himself spends his entire life running in circles. He changes cities, changes jobs, changes relationships, changes routines. Sometimes he even changes countries. Yet the same problems somehow keep finding him. He calls it bad luck, bad timing, bad people. But Jung would ask a different question. What if the pattern is not outside you? What if every place you go simply reveals the same unresolved conflict? Most people believe freedom means escaping uncomfortable situations. Jung believed freedom begins the moment you stop escaping yourself. That is why silence makes so many people uncomfortable. The moment the noise disappears, the conversation begins, not with another person, with yourself. Questions rise to the surface. Who am I when no one is watching? Why do I need approval so badly? Why does rejection hurt more than failure? Why do I constantly compare myself to people I have never met? Those questions have the power to transform a life, or to terrify it, because every honest answer demands change. This is the reason so many people remain permanently distracted. They fill every empty moment. Music, television, social media, podcasts, conversations, notifications. Anything to avoid hearing the one voice that truly matters, their own. Jung often withdrew from the world for long periods, not because he hated people, but because he understood something modern civilization has forgotten. Solitude is not isolation, it is confrontation. When a man sits alone long enough, every illusion begins to collapse. The image he carefully built starts cracking. The excuses lose their strength. The endless justifications become impossible to believe. Eventually, only truth remains. Truth has a remarkable quality. It never screams. It waits, patiently, for the moment you become willing to hear it. Many men spend decades searching for mentors, searching for books, searching for systems, searching for answers. Meanwhile, the greatest teacher has been waiting in silence, their own conscience. Every time you betray yourself, it speaks. Every time you choose comfort instead of growth, it speaks. Every time fear makes another decision for you, it speaks again. The problem has never been that your conscience is silent. The problem is that the world has become too loud. Jung believed that every meaningful transformation begins with one act of courage. Not changing your career, not making more money, not impressing other people. Simply telling yourself the truth, without decoration, without excuses, without self-pity. That kind of honesty feels almost unbearable at first, because it destroys the story you have been telling yourself for years. The story that says, I would succeed if I had more time. I would become disciplined if life were easier. I would start if people supported me. Perhaps, perhaps not. The uncomfortable reality is that many people are not waiting for the right opportunity. They are waiting for certainty. Certainty never arrives. No man has ever walked into greatness feeling completely ready. Musashi was not certain. Marcus Aurelius was not certain. Carl Jung was not certain. Every meaningful life begins with uncertainty. Confidence is never the entrance fee. It is the reward collected at the end of repeated action. That is why courage always comes before confidence, not the other way around. Every authentic decision strengthens something invisible inside you. Every difficult truth accepted makes your foundation stronger. Every uncomfortable conversation builds another layer of character. People often believe character is built during extraordinary moments. History tells a different story. Character is built in ordinary mornings, in invisible decisions, in promises that nobody else will ever know you kept. That is why authentic men become increasingly difficult to manipulate. Advertising loses much of its power. Public opinion loses its authority. Comparison loses its attraction. They stop asking, "What will people think?" and begin asking, "Can I respect myself after making this decision?" That single question changes everything, because self-respect cannot be purchased. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be borrowed from another man's success. It is earned. One decision at a time. One promise at a time. One difficult choice at a time. Jung warned that whatever remains unconscious eventually shapes destiny. Imagine the power of reversing that process. Imagine waking each morning fully aware of your fears, aware of your weaknesses, aware of your strengths, aware of your deepest values. A man like that becomes extraordinarily difficult to deceive, because he has already stopped lying to himself. And once self-deception disappears, manipulation loses its greatest weapon. Perhaps this is why history remembers certain men long after they are gone. Not because they were perfect, not because they never doubted, but because they refused to live divided. Their public life matched their private life. Their words matched their actions. Their convictions survived criticism. That kind of integrity cannot be imitated. It must be forged, slowly, painfully, patiently, every single day. The world desperately needs more intelligent men, but it needs integrated men even more. Men who know their darkness without becoming consumed by it. Men who possess strength without craving domination. Men who can remain silent because they no longer need to prove their worth. That is the kind of man Carl Jung believed every human being could become. Not louder, not more admired, not more feared. Simply whole. There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes something unsettling. The world was never his greatest obstacle. Neither were his parents, nor his enemies, nor his failures. The greatest obstacle had always been the invisible war taking place inside his own mind. From that moment forward, life changes forever. Not because the world becomes easier, because excuses lose their power. Carl Jung believed that every meaningful life follows a path he called individuation, a word that sounds complicated, but points towards something profoundly simple. Become who you truly are, not who your family expected, not who society rewarded, not who your fears invented, not the man your insecurities forced you to become. The real man, the complete man. Few people ever reach that point, not because it is impossible, because it requires something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Responsibility, complete responsibility, not only for your actions, but for your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, your habits, your future. Many people spend decades searching for someone to rescue them. A better relationship, a better job, a better government, a better economy, a better opportunity, a better mentor, a better tomorrow. All the while, the person capable of changing everything has been waiting quietly inside them. Jung understood something extraordinary. No external victory can compensate for an internal defeat. You may become wealthy, respected, powerful, famous. Yet if your inner world remains divided, nothing will ever feel enough. That is why so many successful people secretly live miserable lives. They conquered the world, but never conquered themselves. The opposite is equally true. A man may lose everything: his money, his career, his reputation, even the people he once loved. Yet if he hasn't lost himself, he still possesses the one thing capable of rebuilding everything: identity. Identity is more valuable than talent, more valuable than intelligence, more valuable than opportunity, because identity determines behavior. Behavior determines habits. Habits determine destiny. Everything begins there. This is why Jung insisted that transformation never starts by changing circumstances. It starts by changing consciousness. The man who sees differently lives differently. Think about a seed. Inside something so small rests the possibility of an enormous tree. But that tree never appears overnight. It grows quietly. Its first victories happen underground. No applause, no recognition, no audience, only invisible roots. Character grows exactly the same way. Before confidence becomes visible, integrity grows in silence. Before courage becomes obvious, fear is faced privately. Before wisdom can guide others, humility transforms the individual. The world celebrates fruit. Nature spends years building roots. Modern culture encourages the opposite. Show success immediately. Appear confident immediately. Look powerful immediately. Very few people are willing to disappear long enough to become truly strong. Musashi understood this. Marcus Aurelius understood it. Carl Jung understood it. None of them were interested in appearances. They pursued substance. Substance survives fashion. Substance survives criticism. Substance survives time. Appearances disappear. Character remains. Ask yourself something honestly. If everything were taken from you tomorrow, your money, your possessions, your titles, your followers, your reputation, who would still remain? That answer reveals whether you have built a life or merely decorated one. Jung believed every crisis carries an invitation. Not an invitation to suffer, an invitation to awaken. Pain forces questions comfort never asks. Who am I? Why am I here? What truly matters? What kind of man am I becoming? Those questions cannot be answered by another person. They must be lived. Every single day. The remarkable truth is that becoming whole does not require becoming someone else. It requires removing everything that never belonged to you. Every false belief, every unnecessary fear, every borrowed expectation, every mask, every performance, until nothing remains except truth. Truth has an extraordinary quality. It does not need defending. It simply exists. The same becomes true for the integrated man. He no longer wastes energy trying to convince others of his worth. He knows it, not because someone praised him, because he earned his own respect. That kind of confidence is impossible to imitate. It radiates naturally. People feel it before they understand it. Calm becomes his language. Discipline becomes his habit. Integrity becomes his reputation. Purpose becomes his direction. He no longer needs to dominate conversations. He no longer needs the final word. He no longer competes for attention. Silence no longer feels empty. It feels powerful. This is the paradox the modern world struggles to understand. The strongest man often appears to be the quietest, not because he lacks confidence, because confidence no longer needs an audience. He has nothing to prove, nothing to defend, nothing to hide, only a life to live honestly. Jung believed that every person carries within them a version of themselves that is never fully lived, not because life denied the opportunity, because fear denied permission. Fear whispers, "Stay where you are. Do not disappoint anyone. Do not take risks. Do not become different." But another voice speaks just as quietly, the voice of purpose, the voice that refuses mediocrity, the voice that reminds you that your life was never meant to be an endless performance for strangers. Every morning, those two voices wait for your decision. One promises comfort, the other promises growth. One offers approval, the other offers freedom. One creates temporary peace, the other creates lasting fulfillment. You cannot follow both. Sooner or later, every man must choose. Perhaps that decision begins today, not through some dramatic announcement, not through a perfect plan, simply by telling yourself one truth you have avoided for years, and then acting upon it. One decision, one promise, one courageous step. That is how every transformation begins, not with noise, with honesty, not with applause, with discipline, not by becoming someone new, but by finally becoming the man you were always capable of being. So before you leave, ask yourself one final question. If fear disappeared tonight, what kind of man would you become tomorrow? Hold that answer carefully, because hidden inside it may be the life you have been searching for all along. If this message reached you at the right moment, write in the comments, "I choose truth." Not for this channel, not for anyone watching, for yourself. Because the moment a man stops hiding from who he truly is, he becomes impossible to control. If this episode challenged the way you see yourself, subscribe to The Silent Order, leave a like, and share it with someone who is ready to stop living behind a mask. Because Carl Jung left us with one of the greatest lessons ever written. The man who conquers his own mind no longer fears the world. There is a reason why very few men ever become truly free. Not because freedom is impossible, because freedom has a price. And that price is the death of the person you have been pretending to be. Carl Jung understood that transformation is not about becoming someone new. It is about stripping away everything that was never truly yours. The fears you inherited, the beliefs you borrowed, the expectations you obeyed, the masks you perfected, until one day, nothing remains except the truth. Many people spend their entire lives asking, "How do I become successful?" Very few stop to ask, "Who am I beneath everything the world taught me to become?" That question changes everything, because success without identity is fragile. Money can disappear. Status can vanish. Beauty fades. Power changes hands. But a man who knows exactly who he is cannot be robbed of himself. History has always remembered men like that, not because they possessed extraordinary talent, but because they refused to betray their conscience. Think about every great figure you admire: Marcus Aurelius, Musashi, Nelson Mandela, Viktor Frankl. Their circumstances were completely different. Their cultures were different. Their battles were different. Yet one invisible thread connected them all. None of them allowed the world to decide who they would become. That decision remained their own. This is the final lesson Jung leaves us. The world will always attempt to define you. Some will call you weak. Others will call you dangerous. Some will admire you. Others will resent you. Some will celebrate your growth. Others will secretly hope you fail. If your identity depends on their opinions, your life will always belong to them. The moment you understand this, something extraordinary happens. You stop performing. You stop chasing applause. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never trying to understand you. Silence becomes enough, not because you have given up on people, because you no longer depend on them to confirm your value. That kind of peace cannot be purchased. It must be earned. Every single day. Most men believe courage is loud, standing on a battlefield, winning an argument, taking enormous risks. Jung believed courage looked very different. Real courage is walking into the darkest parts of your own mind, without looking away. It is admitting jealousy, admitting fear, admitting resentment, admitting weakness. Not to become those things, but to stop being controlled by them. The man who refuses to acknowledge his darkness eventually becomes its servant. The man who embraces it consciously becomes its master. That is why integrated men rarely seek conflict. They already know what violence lives inside them. They do not need to prove it. They choose restraint, not because they are incapable, because they are in control. There is an enormous difference. A harmless man avoids conflict because he is afraid. A dangerous man avoids conflict because he has nothing to prove. Modern society often confuses these two men. It mistakes weakness for kindness, submission for humility, silence for insecurity. Jung would disagree completely. The strongest man is not the one who dominates others. The strongest man is the one who has mastered himself so completely that external chaos can no longer dictate his inner world. Imagine waking tomorrow morning without the need to impress anyone, without comparing yourself, without measuring your worth against strangers, without asking for permission to become the person you know you should be. How much energy would suddenly return to your life? How many decisions would become easier? How much fear would disappear? Most people never realize how exhausting pretending really is. Every lie demands another lie. Every mask demands another performance. Every performance creates another prison. Authenticity is lighter. Not because life becomes easier, because you finally stop carrying people you were never supposed to become. One day, your life will end, not as a tragedy, as a certainty. The money you earned will belong to someone else. The titles you collected will be forgotten. The possessions you protected will remain behind. Even your name will eventually be spoken for the last time. Only one question will survive beyond all of it. Did you become yourself? Or did you spend your life becoming what everyone else wanted? That question has no comfortable answer, only an honest one. Perhaps no one has ever asked you that before. Perhaps you have spent years avoiding it. But your conscience already knows. It has always known. Every time you betrayed your values, it knew. Every time fear made another decision, it knew. Every time you remained silent when truth demanded a voice, it knew. Your conscience has never been your enemy. It has always been your compass. The tragedy is not that people lose themselves. The tragedy is that many continue walking even after realizing they are lost. You still have a choice. Not tomorrow, not next year. Now, this very moment. You do not need another motivational speech. You do not need another perfect plan. You do not need another excuse. You need one honest decision, one promise, one action that your future self will thank you for. Transformation has never begun with giant leaps. It begins with a single act of integrity, then another, until discipline becomes character. Character becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Read those words again. The privilege of a lifetime, not wealth, not fame, not power. To become yourself. Few people ever accept that invitation, because the road is lonely, because it demands sacrifice, because it asks you to leave behind everything false. Yet at the end of that road stands something infinitely more valuable than comfort. Freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, the freedom to live without fear of being yourself. The freedom to speak honestly, to love honestly, to work honestly, to walk through life without hiding. That kind of freedom cannot be taken away, not by failure, not by criticism, not by betrayal, not even by loss, because it no longer depends on circumstances. It lives inside the man who earned it. So before this moment ends, stand still for just a second. Forget the world, forget your past, forget every opinion that has ever tried to define you. Ask yourself only one question. If no one else's expectations existed, who would you become? Do not answer too quickly, because hidden inside that answer is the man your soul has been trying to meet since the beginning. If this message reached you at exactly the right moment, write in the comments, "I choose to become myself." Not for this channel, not for anyone reading your words, for the man you will meet in the mirror tomorrow morning. If this episode challenged the way you see your own life, subscribe to the Silent Order, leave a like, and share it with someone who is ready to stop living behind a mask. And remember Carl Jung's timeless truth. Until you face yourself completely, the world will continue deciding who you become. The day you master your own mind, you become a man no one can control.